Okay.
So, First Law.
First Law.
So we'll cover the trilogy first.
We'll do the trilogy. Yeah. Joe Abercrombie, author.
I have to say, when I read the first page of the blade itself, I was like, "This is fucking cool. I love this." When like Logan slips in the mud and the Shanker comes running at him, I was like, "This is cool as shit."
My initial sort of feeling of the book was, is this Conan the Barbarian type book? Like, what's going on here? I thought it was cool, though. I thought it was really cool. I thought the action was well described. He's only gotten better with his language, and
better with everything.
Like, his sentences become smaller in later books, but they're so to the point.
Concise.
And, yeah, they're absolutely concise. They're so concise, and they are so descriptive at the same time.
Yeah.
Or they're so... Yeah, amazing. The guy's great. Yeah. The guy's great. I wish I could be him. I wish I could. I wish I could write something like that. That's really good. But okay, so the first book, right, is basically a setup novel, and from that aspect, you have the main characters all set up. So you have like a chapter for each, or a couple chapters for each character.
I'd say the Dogman was, out of the six main point of view characters, the Dogman had the least in the first one.
Yeah, he did. He probably did. Yeah,
and he was just like a viewpoint to what's happening in the North.
He probably had the least in all of it, eh?
Oh yeah, actually, that's probably accurate.
He probably did have the least in all of it. I think that was intentional too. I think that you give the Dogman the least because that's where most of the action's happening. So you pepper your most interesting stuff through this story.
Right.
The Logan Ninefingers, great character, awesome setup. The start of the book, great. Giselle Dunluther, didn't give a shit about that character at all to start with, and I feel like that was deliberate too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I feel like that was deliberate too. You had to gain trust in that character, or you had to. Yeah.
Well, he was literally like, when they're playing poker, he's like, "Oh, he's the poorest out of my friends. I want to take all of his money."
Yeah. Like you're setting up an unlikable character. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a prick. We also have Pharaoh, angry bitch.
Yeah. Almost primal, eh? Last of her kind of thing.
Yeah. Literally she's part demon or something.
Yeah, demon with like red hair or something.
Yeah. Glocta, fucking, what a character.
Amazingly interesting.
Guy who's been tortured for 2 years and then becomes a torturer. It's brilliant, actually.
I mean, someone asked me, "Oh, what are you doing like later on today?" I was like, "Oh, I'm doing a book podcast or whatever." And he said, "What's a book?" And I said, "It's the first one." And they go, "What's that about?" I said, "Oh, it's about a guy who gets tortured and becomes a torturer and tortures other people."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's one character in it, and it's very dark." And no, well, why? I mean, just that small explanation of a character already alludes to those questions that we want to know. You know, we want to know why. We want to know how. We want to know why revenge, and why would he want to do that to other people if he's been hurt.
Yeah. Like, probably, I reckon the Dogman and Pharaoh are probably the simplest of characters in terms of, like, motivation and all that.
Yep. What is the Dogman's motivation?
He's just going along with it, I think. Like,
definitely, like he'd
part of the crew. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. But like, even when he becomes like the leader of his little band of guys, that's still just the way of things. Like,
and he's like taken gems from Logan of like how to do things, and from Three Trees, and from other people. Like, this is a good way to do this.
But largely, the reason why he isn't with Bethod is because he was with Logan beforehand, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
So that's like, Logan's pretty much fucked him.
Yeah, fucked a lot of people.
Yeah. Interesting though, like, go back to the first time me reading the first novel. Yeah. Go back to that. I borrow the book off you. You say this book's fucking fantastic. It's great. Once you read it, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty thick book. I don't know, because like I think at that time I'd gone off reading, but you were really into it.
Yeah, it's probably what 2014.
Yeah, quite a few years ago, eh? So I borrow it and I start reading it and I get into it and I get into fucking maybe 3 or 4 chapters in, and I'm like, nothing's happening.
Right.
Nothing's happening. It's not. Like, I don't know where the story's going. I said to myself, and I thought, hey, you know what? I'm probably not going to read the book if at the end of it it's like, oh, we're going to go on a quest. This is all just a setup. I'm probably not going to read this book, the second one, if that's all it is. And that's exactly what that first book was. It was exactly that. And when I got to the end of the book, I gave it back to you and I was like, I'm not fucking reading that second one. I said, I didn't really enjoy it. And then you're like, well, what did you like about it? And then I was like, oh shit, well. And I thought about it and I was like, I loved every moment of it. I loved all the little moments of it so much that I read a book that was a setup. And like, the only thing that was going to stop me from reading that second book was because I knew that was a setup. Like, you know. So then I went ahead with the second one anyway.
Yeah. And it's your favourite of the series, eh? The second book.
Second book is the favourite of the series, for me.
Or at least of this trilogy.
Of the first 3, yeah. But there are so many good moments in it, down to little things that people say, little interactions. The first time we see Baez, the magician, fantastic, so descriptive. He's not even like a wizard. Not even like a wizard at all.
He's like chopping meat.
Chopping meat. He's a butcher. He's like completely uncharacteristic of a wizard. He's like a guy who's got like a big, like gruff kind of beard, and he's quite muscular and stuff like that. Whereas normally a wizard would be like a thinner man or someone who's like aged and learned, like lives in books and things like that. This is a very like capable, strong man. You have characters that you don't like Giselle, becoming characters that you absolutely love and can't have without in a book. But for the most part, that first book, you don't like him, you despise him, and you're thinking, why has he even been accepted onto this like fellowship of people going on the quest? One moment in that first book for me that I fucking loved was 3 trees, Dogman, Black Calder, Blackdale, and there's another guy, I can't remember his name.
Oh, Taldur,
yeah. They set up an ambush on the Shanker.
Right.
And then they execute it, and everything goes, a lot of things go wrong, but the whole way it is written, it makes you feel like you're in on it. It makes you feel like you're in on that plan. It makes you feel like you're part of the crew. You're attacking them. And then when it all gets executed, you're like, oh, well, I did not see this coming at all. And the Shanker as a creature that's been made, I can see that
flatheads.
He gained inspiration from goblins and orcs and things like that. But it's so diverse in its way from those other things that it really is interesting that he's created this thing. Like it's they're purely evil, but they're like learned enough to like fish and to do things and be with their own kind, but they're sort of an enigma as well. Well, we don't know the inner workings of their culture because we don't know whether they have young, we don't know where they come from. Are they demons? Are they spawned? Do they come out of the ground? But they're willing to kill themselves if it kills the enemy.
Yeah, like when Logan's hanging from the cliff.
From a tree root.
Yeah, tree root or whatever. It's like biting into his leg, and it's like, that's probably not the smartest thing for someone.
And it's not even trying to climb, it's just trying to kill him or something. So the whole mentality around the character as well. Interesting. Really, really interesting. And like, I think that they're sort of looked at as even like a plague, because they're growing in power in the north. They're like this unseen shadow. Like, you've got a warring nation, and then you've got these terrible things coming from the mountain that like sort of ransack the people, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it because they've already got their own problems.
Yeah.
I feel like the North has their own well-crafted culture.
Yeah.
Hard-trodden people that like
Yeah, it's like some elements taken from like Danes or Vikings, but it's not like it's its own thing as well. Especially with like the way they talk and their culture, it's very. I find it quite unique.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that first book is initially a setup, and it does it in a way where you enjoy it enough to get to the second book. But I can also see why people would fall off of it.
Yeah.
Because it is a setup. It is a setup. And all the things you're hoping to get payoff don't happen.
Yeah, is there any payoff at all, really?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Yeah, I guess like with this trilogy, it should be treated as like one
book, or even at least the first two books as one book.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first book. Anyway, like you have the main characters set up: Pheromelgen.
Yeah. So
Giselle.
Yeah.
Dogman. Glockter.
It's like Logan, Giselle, Pharaoh, and Baez and Longfoot. Oh no, not Longfoot. Quai, the apprentice.
Oh yeah, quite, yeah.
They're like set off to go on this quest to get the seed to the west. Colonel West.
Colonel West.
Colonel West. I think he's a colonel. No, he's not a colonel yet.
Colin West.
Colin West is his name.
Yeah.
He's like going north to fight.
He's a major.
Yeah, that's right. He's going north to fight Bethod.
Yeah.
And then Glockter's going back to Dagosta, or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So the middle nation
That's how it is, right?
is going to the north, and one of the main overall characters, Glockter, who's the torturer, is going to the south. And that's actually where he got captured. He was captured trying to protect Dagosta.
I don't think... No, it was... I don't know if he was there, but he was in that area.
Because it was all the Gurkish and stuff, right?
And, like, him and a bunch of people, like, held this bridge. It's in one of the Sharp End stories.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's one of the first ones, too,
Yeah. I think it is the first one, actually. Yeah, and then he gets all fucked up. Yeah, my only criticism of this book was, like, Logan's motivations to like go along with Baez. Just like, here's a sword, here's a thing. So yeah, okay.
You know,
I guess he wanted some, like, he didn't know what to do, so he was just doing the first thing that came along.
Well, it was all presented to him, and it was easy enough. The other thing about that is Baez had a way of making people do whatever they wanted, what he wanted anyway.
Yeah,
like
definitely a manipulator.
Yeah, very, very much so. Like, even to the point where he directly manipulates Giselle with magic.
Oh yeah, in the fight. Yeah, the contest. Yeah.
But I think that the main issue for me is that there is no payoff in all of it.
Yeah.
Like, the entire series, there's no payoff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The entire series has no payoff. I think it's about the moments, and it's about those characters growing, and it's about... I mean, I think sometimes we get so absorbed with stories being what happens at the end, that we don't really enjoy what's happening in the moment. And this series is really what happens in the moment. It's when they go on that adventure to the lost land to get the seed that started the world, or whatever it is. Like, going on that adventure, adventuring with them, that is all what the book is. And it's the love of those moments is a great thing. And it was great seeing, like, all these different cultures as well, because that second book was so diverse in culture. You had the north where it's snowing with, like, the Viking type characters. You had the middle part of the world where it's all closed council and bureaucracy, You had like the kings and queens. Then to the west, where like it's where the world started off, like original, or east. I can't really remember. It's west. It's off, west, right? And that's like a wet, mossy land almost. Like all the statues have like moss on them. They're all like wet and decaying and falling apart. And that's all part of the seed's magic. Like it decays things.
Yeah, and there was like I guess we're moving on to the second book.
Second book now.
There's a part maybe halfway through or near the end when there's like a distinct line where this radiation or whatever it is like affecting the land and
it's like a magical radiation, right? Like one side of it is completely damaged and the other side is fairly normal but run down. I thought it was interesting that in this world that there is kings like King Harold the Great. They always they reference King Harold. King Harold was the best man and all this other things. But there's a complete rich history from before King Harold in this other massive city that no one ever goes to anymore. And the only people that live there are bandits that have been living there since their parents brought them there or brought them up. And they're just like the last people who lived there, the people who couldn't get away, you know?
Yeah. So Glocters and Dagosta trying to solve the mystery of his predecessor in that city who has disappeared. Yeah. So there's like quite a bit of intrigue and stuff going on there. A lot of mysteries. And that's where we meet Kostka.
Kostka, yeah.
He's a cool character.
He's a mercenary who owns like an army of mercenaries, basically.
Yeah. Was it the Thousand Swords or what is it called?
Yeah, I think it's called the Golden Swords.
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't know. I always get them and the Game of Thrones ones mixed up.
Oh yeah. And then like Logan and Giselle and them are on that quest to get the seed. I quite liked Logan and Giselle's like developing like a bromance kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe more of a mentorship.
Definitely there was a mentorship. Yeah. It was almost like Padawan Jedi type thing. And I feel like when you really humble these characters, that's when you get the most out of them.
Yeah, when their face is smashed in. Yeah.
He is this character who's completely unlikable because he's pretty, because he's come from rich stock and he's rich. You know, he's like one of his friends is poor. Yeah. One of the other what do you call it, captains or whatever he's in the initial group he's in.
Yeah.
Army captain.
It's like Gyllenhaal or some shit.
That's
one of them.
He's poor, completely poor. So, and he makes fun of him. Oh, you're poor. And then when he's faced with a completely smashed in face and a scar and like losing teeth, he has to come to terms with that, and he does. He does come to terms with that, and he becomes more of a person because of a better person. Yeah. He never goes
turning point for him.
Yeah, he never goes like 360 because that's unrealistic. Yeah. And that's what I thought was great about these books is there is a certain amount of realism character wise. Magic was also very interesting in it.
Right. There's a few moments. Are you talking about like Baez's magic or the seed doesn't come up in the second book, because there's nothing there.
It's almost as if magic is like escaping the world or like leaving the world.
Right.
And every time you use it, it's like sands of an hourglass tipping out, and if you use magic, then there's less sand in the hourglass, even though it's slipping away anyway. Because I think it's is it your way?
Yeah, he's a shapeshifter or whatever. He can take other people's forms.
Is that him?
I think it's him.
It's he's like Bias is like second in command.
Traveling mate, because is he the one that recruits Pharaoh?
Yeah, the one who recruits Pharaoh.
I remember. I think it might be him actually.
Yeah.
Because he makes them invisible for a bit, right?
I think so.
That's in the first book.
But yeah. He turns someone's skeleton into water.
Oh, okay.
Like Pharaoh's fighting a few people off, and because he initially saves her in the first book, and he turns this guy's like bones into water, and it's like just this pink mess on the floor, but it's alive, and it's like he's got absolutely no remorse or even mercy for it. It's like, and he's also kind of a grey character as well. He's not fully with Baez. He's still living off an old archaic magi, like guild type deal.
Right.
Yes, but every time magic's used in it, there's always a huge cost to it. It's like when that happens with that guy, he can't do anything for a while, and then when Baez uses magic, he's out. He's in a coma for a while, you know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was quite weakened for a bit.
Yeah, and that's when he becomes like very sickly and everything.
There's always a cost. Probably the thing I liked the most about this book was West's arc. I think this is the one where like the colonel dies and he has to pretend he's still alive to save morale. Was it this book? And
it was. Yeah, it was.
He ends up with the Northmen. Like there's some like they kidnap him or something.
No, what happens is the
army's fucked.
The army's fucked because they give over command to the prince because one of the princes goes on campaign with them. He's like, oh, we've got thousands more men than the Northlanders.
Yeah.
We're gonna go and we're gonna take this hill, and every general is basically a pen pusher. They don't ever want to commit to anything.
Yeah,
and they also don't want to do anything. All they want to do is go in when the battle's almost over, and then take the flags and say, "Oh, look, we did it! Jolly good show, jolly good show."
And there's those two generals that were like rivals.
Yeah,
that just didn't help things at all.
Yeah, and when they did eventually try and take this hill, what they didn't realize is that it's all uphill.
Yeah,
so they
muddy and
there's no traction. The army gets fucked, and they basically have to run into the woods because
so West he saves the prince, and then they hook up with the Northmen. And he ends up killing the prince because he tries to rape that girl.
Yeah, there's a female with them, right? Who's she? She's like
she was with that guy,
major's, like,
the guy with the burnt face guy, Pike.
Yeah, Pike. Yeah.
She was with him.
But he's a convict or something, yeah.
Yeah, he was Salem Ruse. He was in the.
Oh, that's right.
He got sent away in the first book by Gokta.
He was a merchant or something, yeah. He gets his face burnt off.
No, there was a merchant and he gets his fingertips cut off. I think it was a different guy.
Oh, okay.
But there's another guy that got sent away to England. That was Salem Ruse, I think. Yeah. But it was part of the same thing. Like, there's a bunch of merchants that got sent there or something.
The interesting thing about that prince is that has so much. He's so pompous. Like, he's completely so pompous that he tries to tell the army to run up this hill, even though everyone sort of advised him against it. It fails. Then when that happens and he's scarpering for his life, he's still expecting everyone else around him to like care to his every whim. Yeah. He's like shitting in the middle of the bush and like, you can't shit here, they're going to track you because of like this and all this other thing. Right. And that's an interesting part of the book because you've got like this group of like characters, soldiers and Northmen who are used to living in the bush, and they're really carrying this like pompous person who can't even like fend for themselves. And when it's a quiet period, we're like, oh look, we've finally gotten away, we'll like douse down for the night or whatever. This pompous prick thinks it's okay to try and have sex with some woman just because he's the king, and that's really what lands him into trouble. And obviously
gets pushed off a cliff, right?
Yeah, Colin West gets angry and pushes.
It's like the guy he was like trying to protect ends up killing him. It's funny. And they give him the name Furious, which is very accurate. Yeah, it's when he like beats the shit out of Ardy in the first one.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he does too.
Yeah. What else happens? I mean, Logan and them on the quest, that wasn't quite like, it was about the like lots of things happened on the journey, but the end result was like they didn't get anything.
Yeah. So they got to the center of that journey. They go all the way to the.
It's got a rock.
Yeah, original place, and it's just a rock. It's not even anything special. And then you meet other Magi members along the way, the ones that like didn't want to go with Baez but still lived to the Magi code, and they're like, they're basically living in like the rundown filth of the world.
Yeah.
And it's you see how destitute everything has become. That is for me, the entire way I was reading that, I was like, oh, they're really going to go deliver the ring to Mordor. And then when we find out that there's no ring and there's no Mordor, I was like, what the hell happened? Like, why'd they go there? And even the characters feel like cheated a little bit, eh?
Yeah.
Logan says he's going to go back to the north.
Yep.
Giselle's like found himself as a human, but then is immediately thrown out again when he gets back to Anglan. He stops people from attacking the beggars and stuff.
Oh right, yeah. That was kind of a setup though.
That was a setup, yeah. But like,
and what else? Oh, and like Glocta's story was like another thing where like the end result was like kind of pointless.
Yeah, he lost the city. Like he was there to
defend it, and then oh no, you got to go back.
Yeah.
Just
I
leave
thought that was really interesting as well. Glocta got sent to a city that was under siege to protect that city, the guise of being protected. But he was there to figure out what happened to the last guy.
Yeah. It was the Eater.
And every time, this is another thing that I probably feel is the payoff in the book, is that every time Glocta does find out an answer for something, it's so irrefutable for him. He still doesn't believe it.
Right.
It's like he finds out that the Eater girl who killed the last person who was in charge of that city is like this vampire eater creature. He still can't believe it with his own eyes. He still tries to torture it. He still tries to do different things. And it doesn't work. And even the creature gets real with him. It gets really real and really deep with him. It's like, I didn't want to be this way. Like they made me this way. They made me eat it. I broke the first law. I did this. And yeah, you should kill me because like that's the only way it's going to end for me. Yeah. And he just, because he's like he's actually somewhat devoid of some emotion, I think.
You know what? That scene where they capture her is like very vivid.
Yeah.
Like even before I'd reread this, like I remembered that as like he's in his room and he's like pretending to be, well, he is vulnerable, like just as a person.
Yeah.
But like the way they set it up, it was just like you could really see it in your head.
Yeah,
well,
you could.
For me, yeah.
It was like it was in the middle of the night. Because it's a hot area. Yeah, balcony. Yeah. The practicals were cool. I thought that they were really interesting and had their own little like characters and stuff, and they grew as characters too.
Practical Frost, Severard.
Yeah, Severard. Severard was quite witty as well.
Yeah,
always had something to say, and Frost was
like
a mute almost. He didn't have a tongue or something.
Oh, he could talk, but he was, I don't know what his deal was. Yeah, he's an albino, big brute of an albino who just didn't talk much, I guess.
Weird though, that you get these characters that do like torturing people. They're like that's what they're in it for. Like the pay's not that much.
Yeah.
Going into a city that's under siege is like basically suicide.
Yeah.
Costco was cool because as soon as the city got overthrown, he was just like, "Oh yeah, I'll go with you guys."
Yeah. A
mercenary sellsword to the last. So. Yeah. So that's the second book. What's happened? The third book, so it all comes to a head.
Yeah. So with Logan heading back, man, the battle in that like crumbling fort or whatever. Yeah. That was so cool. I love that. Yeah. That's another thing that was like really stuck in my head. Yeah. Giselle's basically set up to be king.
Yeah, he gets set up to be king.
Well, that's been happening for ages, but like, you know, he saves those beggars or whatever. Yeah. Then he's sent off to like stop this peasant uprising, and then it's like that Yoru or whatever pretending to be
the bad guy.
Yeah, and he's just like, yeah, we'll make a deal. Oh, sort of done. And then Giselle's like this hero, and then it's like, oh, he's the bastard son of.
He's like, I didn't do anything. Yeah.
I guess the king dies in this one, and the two his heirs are already dead. one was murdered in the city, and then
the other
West
one
killed
died,
the other one.
Yeah, in the war.
And then Baez is hyping up Giselle.
I thought it was interesting because we start to see what Baez actually is. We see that he is the mastermind behind all of this, even to the point where he's the reason why magic's leaving the world.
Right.
He's killed the creator. He's killed like everyone's chance. He just wants to control everything, even to the point where if Giselle says no to being the king, his friend who was the poor guy who wrote the first book,
is
a backup Giselle.
Yeah, and Giselle like kind of goes back on his like once he's humbled in the second one, he's like, oh, I'm gonna marry Artie and I'm gonna quit the army and all that. And there's like, oh, we're gonna give you a promotion. It's like, oh, maybe I'll stay in the army. And they're like, oh, now you're gonna be king. Oh, see you, Artie. Like.
What's the lion's name in the most recent book?
Oh, Leo.
And what's his last name? Dan Brock.
Yeah.
Dan Brock was the other guy.
He was a traitor.
Was he?
He was. Yeah. So Leo's father.
Yeah.
Was.
Because I feel like
in the Heroes.
Yeah. Wasn't Dan Brock the guy who was going to be the other king if Giselle said no?
I don't think so. I think he was trying to be in power. Like he was a traitor.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember the exact details of it. But he was like on Salt's side, I think. Art Lecter Salt's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, alright, gotcha.
I can't remember if he dies or if he's just like exiled.
Oh.
Or runs off. What else do we have? What's Glockter doing in this book?
Glockter, he's working for Salt, but he also is working for Baez because Baez is like has basically told him, look, I'm in charge of everything. I am also Valentin Bulk, who owns everything. Yeah. You're gonna work for me now, and he hates that. He's begrudgingly doing what he says, but he's also wants to stay alive. There's a weird duality with Glockter. He's been tortured to the point where he doesn't want to live. Everything is painful for him, but he also doesn't want to give up, and he doesn't want to die either. He wants to get the answers still. Yeah, it's very interesting. So Glockter is working for him, and he's been called back, and I think Salt's basically trying to gain control over the closed council and become the king, right? Like
or at least the person in power.
And Baez is trying to stop that, so he's commanded Glockter to basically overthrow Salt in an underhanded way. So that's basically what he's doing, and then war breaks out between Gurkel.
Oh yeah, there was that whole thing about the emissary. Yeah. And they basically blame him for the prince's death or the king's death or something. Yeah. And they like publicly execute him, and that kicks off the whole war with the Gurkish Empire or whatever. Yeah. And
then on the other hand, there's two wars happening. There's a war
Bethod
with Bethod, and then we see our first thing with Bethod is actually controlling the Flatheads, and we don't know how he's doing it.
Probably, I guess it's through that witch.
There's a witch. Yeah, there's a witch.
She also kind of controls, or at least enhances, Fenris the Feared.
Yeah, there's
tattooed guy.
And anything that's tattooed, he can heal. Yeah, like that. There's a weird magic thing about him.
And and like two of his limbs are armored, like one arm and one leg. Yeah. Man, that Logan versus Fenris was
awesome fight.
Crazy fight. Yeah.
But the whole war in the north was interesting. The major cities are all been destroyed. Everything's already owned by Bethod, the main guy. So we're gonna have to go up into the mountains. But the only guy up in the mountains is a nutcase who thinks he can talk to the moon. Yeah, that's right. And there's some truth to it, because the moon is what gives Logan Ninefingers his power, really. But it's not really explained as much, Right. It's kind of like an inferred thing. Yeah. Yeah, so they have that battle in that fort, and then eventually Logan
fights and kills Fenris, and then Bethod. And that's like the North issue resolved because then Logan's king.
Yep.
Then Giselle's king as well, and then Logan comes down south to help him with the Gurkle thing.
Yep. So Gurkish, the Eaters, the vampire guys are all
storming the city.
They
fuck shit up.
They destroy most things.
Yeah.
There's a house in the middle of England.
House of the Maker.
House of the Maker, the guy who created almost.
They go there in the first book, right?
They go there in the first book, and it's interesting, but it's just a bunch of like weird spinning things, and like it's all stuff that we can't understand because it's like beyond humans.
Walk around, and then like they go up this balcony, and they're suddenly way up. It's like, we didn't go up on these stairs. Like,
yeah, that's right.
But that's where the seed is eventually, and find out because Quai, the apprentice, was like all weird, like book 2 and 3.
Yeah,
and it turns out he was
replaced
killed
at some point, right?
Yeah, he was killed in the first book, and it's like the woman that Baez
pretended to be in love with her.
Like he said, she had died or something. Like thousands. It
was the Maker's daughter.
Yeah, but he had killed her or thrown her off the top of
a roof or something. Yeah.
But is she an eater or is she?
She's an eater. Yeah, like the Maker had created these rules for magic and everything else, and had banished demons from the world and tried to create everything in a good light. But Baez wanted to control things so much that he had to kill the creator to get that control. But by doing it, he didn't realize that magic would leave from the world. He didn't realize that people would start breaking those rules. So people became eaters. Like, really, the strange thing about it is that the Gurkish are actually the good guys. Even though they've done terrible things, they tortured Glocta. They have thousands of slaves, and they throw those slaves at the enemy like they're worthless. They've broken all the natural laws of life. They've eaten the humans, and they've created like creatures. But the leader of that group is the only guy who stayed true to the Maker's plans of things. Right, the rest of the Magi either pretended or didn't want to do anything about Baez.
And then they use the seed, buck up half the city, kill the eaters.
Yeah, and they have to have Pheromelgen to do it as well, because she's the last of the demons.
She's immune to this weird radiation. Again, West dies. Oh, and this is where the whole Shivers thing is set up. Like he's just very much a side character, but there's that tension between him and Logan.
Because he kills his brother, right? He killed his brother prior to the books.
Logan killed his brother and... Oh yeah, no, he killed his brother and like nailed his head to this post or something. And then I think the father... I don't think he killed him, but his father like turned into a drunk afterwards or something like that.
Yeah. Though that's very graphic. That's very, very graphic.
Yeah.
That's probably... There's not a huge amount of gore in this book.
I suppose not. I mean, some of the fights
are quite gory, like when he cuts that guy with the metal arms and stuff. But there's not a lot of gore in it, Like,
yeah, I suppose maybe the radiation, people were affected by that. Like,
that was probably
fingernails peeling off, and then like
because Colin starts getting really sick and his teeth fall out and his hair fall out and everything.
That was sad, especially like with Glocta, where West is like his only friend.
Yeah,
he's like, he's dead or dying at that point.
Also, the payoff for him was terrible. It's like he's gone this entire journey, become the Furious Man, relinquish the Furious Man, become a better person because of it.
Yeah. And
finally, in the end, his reward is dying of some kind of cancer.
Yeah.
Radiation sickness.
At least there was some sort of redemption, or he made up with Ardy's sister.
Ardy has sex with Giselle. Giselle becomes the king. No longer can be with Ardy.
She's pregnant. Glocta marries her, so she doesn't have to die.
Yeah.
Baez kicks the shit and humbles Giselle. Not humbles, I mean, like...
Basically just says, you're under my thumb.
Yeah, you're just a slave.
Yeah.
king and only name.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty much only buyers, and I guess Gokta have a win. And Gokta's win is a wife with a kid who isn't his. But he's kind of, aside from buyers, the most powerful
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even he tells the king what to do.
Yeah.
Logan goes back to the north, gets overthrown. It's so changeable in the north. Like everything
kind of ends like it begins. Actually.
Yeah.
Jumping out into a river or whatever.
Yeah. So I think that first 3 books, you get taken on a whirlwind, really, don't you? And like it all ends how it begins. There's a king on the council. There's only problem is that everything is destroyed at the end of it.
Yeah, everything's fucked up, and I guess for Baez, like, he is in control again. Like, I think he didn't have any control over the previous king or whatever.
Yeah. The way I really saw it is that, like, Baez was this, like, he pretended to be this Gandalf the Grey character, but really he was Saruman the White. Like, he was controlling all the strings. He had this plan from the start, you know. It's crazy.
Yeah. What would you rate the trilogy overall?
Oh, you know, thinking about it like this, like, when you really look at it, it's so hard for me because there's huge areas of the book that wild stuff happens just to have no payoff at all. And like, it's like, oh, I read this whole thing about a war that didn't really need to happen, or things like that.
But like you were saying about, like, it's about the journey.
It's about the journey. So I don't know. It's so hard for me because I don't know. I'd give it a 10. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 because I enjoyed all the moments so much, and there's so many diverse characters, so many characters that you can apply yourself to. There's so many words of wisdom. There's just so much packed into it. It's so dense. It's so dense with story. Even though there's absolutely no payoff and things are a little bit hokey, like if you went to someone, and that's I suppose that's why it's so hard to actually talk about the book as well. If you went to someone and said, and they asked you, oh, what are these 3 books about, and if you summarized it, you can't say like Lord of the Rings. You couldn't summarize it the same way. Like Frodo gets ring, takes to the mountain. You can't summarize it like that because it is about that journey. There's so many ups and downs.
Yeah.
That it's an experience that you have to have. And yeah, I think I'd give it a 10. As much as the things that don't pay off do irk me, there's so many good characters, concept, and everything else involved in it.
Okay.
It's like the reverse Jack Cloudy. Like, that's the... I'm thinking about it, like, Jack Cloudy had so many good ideas and stuff, but nothing paid off well. Nothing was written like in a way where you could harness the potential of those things. This is like, oh, I've got a really poor idea for a story. There's a guy who walks off and wants to get a few other people on a journey but goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, the actual plot to this story is terrible. Like, but it's written so well that the story works.
Characters are so real.
Yeah.
Especially, like, there's so many gems of, like, one-liners, like the whole, it's like it's better to do a thing than live in fear.
Yeah. Like,
I'll go 9.5 out of 10.
You don't want to give it a 10?
Nah, just, like, I guess the first book, which I love, I guess isn't
strong, eh?
Yeah. Like, I would probably rate 2 and 3, probably 10 out of 10, and then the first one's like a 9. It's like amazing, but not perfect for me.
Yeah, I see the problem, but like, I don't know. It's weird. He's worked around the problem. He's worked around the problem so well that you still go with it. Like, if I told you the plot to the second book, oh, there's a bunch of guys who go on an adventure and it doesn't do it, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Nothing happens in the adventure. Like, the actual summary of those stories are bad.
Yeah, it's hard to...
Every one. Even the third one's a complicated mess.
Yeah.
There's two wars going on, and in the end, everything gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, the actual summary, when you boil it down to the bones, is bad.
Like, two of the main characters become kings. One loses it and is on the run, and the other one keeps his crown, but he's basically a servant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's written so well, and it's so engaging.
Yeah.
That defeats any kind of like boiled down plot that you would have.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So I think I'd have to give it a 10, and I acknowledge that the first one isn't strong though, because that's definitely would fall off for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the trilogy. I give it a 10. You give it a 9.
9.5.
9.5. Okay. Fair enough.
It's near perfect for me.
Near perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.